Welcome to the University of Michigan Dentistry Podcast Series, promoting oral health care worldwide.
The efficient operation of the dental business office is critical to the success of the private practitioner. Many new ideas have been developed in business office equipment, bookkeeping systems, as well as dental forms and appointment control devices. These ideas are among the topics to be discussed on today's edition of By Design.
By Design, a look at the changing scene in auxiliary utilization, business office procedures, facilities design, and contemporary trends in the management of a modern dental practice.
Modern business machines, filing systems, communication devices, and office supplies are among the many tools necessary for the business office auxiliary in the dental practice. Here to discuss what is available to the dentist to facilitate business office procedures are the co-authors of a book entitled Office Procedures for the Dental Team, Betty Ladley and Jerry Patt. Jerry, you've been teaching on the college level for nearly 15, 16 years now. What would you view as the major categories of equipment that a dentist should buy when he first starts to open a private practice and establishes a business office area?
Well, one of the first things, he's going to have a good typewriter. Later on in the typing area, perhaps even some word processing equipment, transcription equipment, adequate filing equipment, calculators, proper telephone communication systems, and by that I mean an intercom system, and perhaps mailing devices for postage meter and maybe even addressing envelopes.
I'd like to talk about those in detail if we can. Consider now the beginning practitioner trying to make the decision on what to buy. Let's start with typewriters. What should a dentist have for a typewriter?
All right, as there are typewriters on the market today that allow a person to select the kind of type style that they want. And I think that's very important because, for example, on some of the dental records, you definitely would want a bold print perhaps. Perhaps in letters, you might like a script element. And this, being able to select the type, I feel is quite important. Another feature on a typewriter that I feel is of utmost importance is the width of the carriage. You certainly don't want a short 11-inch carriage if you're going to be putting in 13-inch dental clinical records. So you need a wide carriage in order to accommodate your records. Another feature on the machines today will be the what we call a dual pitch, either being able to select from a 10-pitch to a 12-pitch typewriter.
What does pitch mean?
All right, that allows 10 spaces per inch or 12 spaces per inch, or Pica and Elite type. Now the Elite type, being the smaller of the two, would allow you to have more information typed on a form, and that's obviously where you're going to need to be squeezing in information on various patient information.
Are we assuming that these are electric typewriters now?
Well, I certainly wouldn't consider buying a manual typewriter today.
Why?
Well, first of all, I guess maybe I'm just a little too lazy and I like all the features of the automatic typewriter. You're going to get an even touch, the print's all uniform, many more features available on an electric typewriter.
Would you say that a portable typewriter is relatively low cost would be excluded from your consideration?
I would exclude it from my consideration. First of all, you're going to have a small carriage, not accommodate forms that you're going to need to type. If you have a typist that has any speed at all, she's fighting to keep the portable typewriter on the typing table. And they're just kind of a nuisance all the way around, I feel, for an efficient office.
What other kind of typing devices or equipment?
Well, of course, one of the new things that's in our offices today is our word processing equipment, which is an automatic typewriter. And along with the automatic typewriter, there are several available on the market today. One of the least expensive ones happens to be one that has a memory already housed in the typewriter itself, and that is available up to a 50 or 100 page capacity. It allows you to type, back up, strike over, and make your corrections.
But what does the machine actually do for the dentist?
Well, once the final copy has been made, then you have your copy available to you to play as many times as you wish, make changes to whatever you would like, store it, remove it from storage at a later date if you wanted to use it for a recall letter, or if you wanted to use it as an acknowledgement of a new associate going in practice with you, any type of a mass mailing that you wanted to inform your patients of.
This would give you the advantage of having an originally typed
every time
page as opposed to a duplicate.
Yes. Now, of course, the memory typewriter is one that has the memory capacity within the machine. There are other types of machines that will also allow, go ahead, to get into other types of media. We have a card media, for example. And the card media is actually where your document is being recorded when the typist is keyboarding. Now, the card can be stored for years, pulled again from the files whenever that particular bit of information is needed. Then if you get into more detailed type of documents, go ahead, you will want to get into something where you have even what we'd call a dual capacity. Now we're looking at a machine that uses a dual cassette, and that allows interphasing from one tape to another. Now this, if we're talking about a mass mailing, for example, your letter will be on one part of the station, your address is for your patients on the other, and you're just going back and forth and you have absolutely no typing to do because your addresses for your patients are being recalled from the other tape.
So it'll mix them together onto one final product that you mail out.
Right. And then, again, you take your tape that has all the patients' names and addresses on it, put that back in your machine, put the envelopes in, feed them through, and it addresses the envelopes also for you.
Would you think that a beginning dentist would have this kind of equipment in their office?
I seriously doubt if a dentist that's just beginning practice would see a real need for this. But as the practice grows, even another associate goes in to the office, or as this person maybe gets involved with even guest lecturing, if he has notes that he wants to prepare and send out to many people, or even give a copy of his lecture to other associates, then here he can have a perfect draft copy mailed to them.
Does it matter what kind of stool the typist has to sit in?
Well, I would certainly recommend a secretarial posture chair. That person is going to be sitting at that position the biggest share of the day. And certainly we don't want this person any more fatigued than we do someone working at chairside, that we're trying to make them comfortable also.
So the dentist should put that on the shopping list?
By all means. As a matter of fact, I think the business assistant should have input and be able to help select some of this equipment. I don't think the dentist should just go out and purchase something because he likes the looks of it. I think he should have input from the business assistant. I like this. This fits my body. After all, she's the person that has to sit there.
Transcription equipment is often raised as a device that would be helpful to the dentist. How do you see that?
Well, actually, as far as the transcription equipment, it perhaps is not going to be needed at the very beginning of a practice, a new practice. But certainly as this dentist is working, as maybe getting into some special cases, he might have quite a history that he would want to relay to another dentist, referring dentist. All right, as he does this, he's not going to have time to bring a secretary in and dictate to that person. So how is he going to do the dictation? Through dictation equipment, maybe after hours, the quietness of the home, goes back to work the next day, takes his dictation back, and then this is available then to the secretary so that she can transcribe the case history at her convenience and not have to be interrupted to go in and take dictation.
What type do you recommend when he ultimately selects this device?
Well, there again, the most common I think that are being used today are perhaps the cassettes. And they're easy, they're even available in portable machines, and ones that come back to the standard models, and a person can actually be in flight from here to Los Angeles going to a conference, wants to dictate some material, so he has it dictated. By the time he arrives in Los Angeles, gets it back to the secretary. It's all completed when he gets back. Cassettes are very, very easy to mail back to the home office and this type of thing.
What about copying devices, Betty?
I think that the beginning practitioner may need it perhaps after 6 months to a year. It's not absolutely mandatory the first week, but I think that it's one of the earlier purchases that they should consider, especially for reproduction of statements. Initially, if you have a small patient load, then you do not need it. It would go hand in hand with the type of bookkeeping system that you're going to use, but it would certainly be needed for statement reproduction, any other copies that you want to make and transfer of records to a patient, and also copies of materials to insurance companies often are necessary.
Considering cost of copying devices, do you have some recommendation for the type that would be most appropriate for a dentist?
I don't think you need to go into any large piece of equipment. A small reproduction, certainly something that will give you copy that will be able to be retained for a period of years, is certainly a factor. The type of paper that the reproduction is on is important, something that's going to be aesthetic when it's mailed to another office.
Another item to think about on copying machines, will it copy all colors? Occasionally you have color-coded stationery, or you might even have forms that have color added to them, or even a person might use red or green ink. Not all machines will copy colors.
That's an important fact. I hadn't thought about that at all. You mentioned communications equipment, telephone systems, intercoms, and the like. What did you have in mind for communications devices for the private practitioner?
One of the things that you should consider is a multiple line telephone. Certainly in any office today you're going to need more than one line. You should have up to 2 or 3 telephone lines so that the assistant is able to make calls, receive incoming calls, and then the doctor could be perhaps on another line to the laboratory. In addition to that, you'll need some type of an intercom so that you can communicate with in the office. The slide that you see here shows an intercom in the business office, and then there's another slide that shows you something that's within the operatory, so that if the person in the operatory wants some information from the business office, they can make that call. It can be done on various types of intercom systems, phone or with color.
Does the phone actually ring into the operatory itself, or does it chime, or a light?
There are various ways. You can use the light. The light often doesn't indicate to the operator if they're busy in the mouth any information, but certainly a chime would be a very pleasant thing to receive in the
There's been some comment about intercom systems having the telephone system as shown here in preference to the loudspeaker general broadcast type in the room because of privacy. Do you agree with that?
Yes, I definitely do. I don't think at any time there should be an intercom system that lets everybody in the office know what's happening. It should be a private type of system. I personally prefer the light system and coded light so that you can communicate with light and numbers of perhaps of buzzers. But the next choice then would be a telephone system.
You mentioned, going back to your comment on telephone systems, the number of lines coming into a private office. What would be the minimum number of lines that you'd want to come into a practice?
No less than 2. 3 would be probably the preferable choice. And this is true of the beginning dentist. Otherwise you cannot receive incoming calls. Patient dials the phone and it's busy. They're going to call somewhere else if they get a constant busy.
Should you list both lines, or should it automatically switch to both?
I think it could automatically switch to both unless you had some preference for a private office phone.
You mentioned calculators earlier in the discussion. There are many different types of calculators today, pocket size,
Right.
office size, and so forth. Let's focus on that. What do you think about calculators for a private practitioner?
Well, I think we probably should rule out the pocket-size calculator. I think, first of all, your keyboard is too small for what purpose we're going to be using the calculator. I think the 2 standard types as far as a table model would be a display model, and that of course just displays the figures that have been entered into the machine.
A light display?
A light display, right. The second one is and it can be both a light display as well as a tape display. A tape display quite often is quite beneficial, especially if you need to have a tape, for example, an adding machine tape of your accounts receivable for the day. If a person is interrupted when making the tally for the day, and they come back at least on a tape, they're able to see what number was printed last. And on a display, that is next to impossible to know what number went in last.
So you would recommend the tape?
I would think perhaps, yes, I would almost go a tape. That way you do have an opportunity to go back and check your accuracy and know your input a little better than on the display.
Betty, filing is always a problem in the dental office with patient records, correspondence, and a variety of other paper good items that have to be kept for a long period of time. What is available in the area of filing systems, and what do you recommend?
Well, there are two basic types of filing cabinets that you would need for your clinical records. The choice can be made from one of these two. The first is a vertical file, which takes much more room for the assistant to pull the drawer out, as you see in this slide. The second type would be the lateral file. It takes less depth for the patient records. Another file would be the Rolodex, and this would be a place where you would store commonly called numbers or used for addresses. Then recall files can be placed in a small drawer near the telephone. And then the last shown here would be for the ledger files. These would be the patient's financial records. And if you later on want to add a fireproof safe, this might be a consideration.
Is that common in practice to have safe files?
It certainly would be a good suggestion for storage of financial records in case of a disaster.
They're available?
Yes, they are.
They're available. Paper products, supplies for the dental office. What kinds of things should the dentist look for in paper products, the bare essentials to start with?
Well, he's certainly going to need the clinical records, and these should be the large clinical record with a patient envelope. The size would be probably the 8.5 by 11, and this houses all of the information necessary. Then you will need some type of stationery, and we suggest an attractive stationery reflecting the personality of the dentist. Often, as you see here, you could include the colors. You might want to include a logo in the upper left corner, and the stationery, of course, will choose the letter style that the doctor prefers.
Will print shops design a logo
yes,
for you?
And there are numerous dental supply stationery companies that you can probably get stationery for at an inexpensive rate.
What about medical histories and the like?
You'll need a health questionnaire form. This can be a single page or multiple page, but it should be thorough. And certainly be cautious about the information that you secure, in that it does not deal with discrimination. Don't worry about sex and marital status, and try to have something that's consistent with the community needs.
Do dentists usually design these themselves, or are they something, these health questionnaires can be purchased?
These can be purchased again from the same stationery house.
Recall system is a function of the office. What kind of supply inventory is needed for that?
Well, this you can design yourself on a small 4x6 cards. You need probably an alphabetical card and a monthly card, or you can purchase a very complex one, again from the stationery supply, but I think you can design your own. And with the recall system, a small file drawer is certainly all that's necessary.
Bookkeeping is a major function of the private practice. What's available there?
Very definitely important, and I would suggest for the initial purchase for a practitioner a pegboard system. A pegboard system is what we call often the write-it-once system. Here you produce a fee slip, a receipt for the patient, you write on the ledger card, and you write on the daily sheet, all in one writing. And today we also are finding in pegboard systems a claim form. The receipt actually can become the claim form for the insurance company. And I certainly would not consider anything less than that. Later on they might want to go to something more complex like a computer.
Our guests today have been Betty Ladley and Jerry Patt from Washtenaw Community College. And we've discovered that a great deal of planning and a lot of decisions have to be made by the dentist who is setting up a business office for the first time. This is an important part of management, not by crisis methods, but rather by design.
been listening to a presentation from the University of Michigan School of Dentistry, which is dedicated to supporting open learning and open educational resources. This recording is licensed under the Creative Commons. It may be reused and redistributed for nonprofit use. Please attribute materials to the University of Michigan School of Dentistry and redistribute under this same license. For more information on how this and other University of Michigan School of Dentistry recordings may be used, visit www.dent.umich.edu/license.